happy to be joined by my guest today, Mike Kim. Mike is a friend and a colleague and an extraordinarily talented guy. He's a speaker and a marketing strategist. He specializes in brand strategy and copywriting. He's been hired by really influential thought leaders like John Maxwell, Donald Miller, Suzanne Evans, Catalyst. He's been a chief marketing officer for a successful multi-million-dollar New York City firm. And nowadays, you'll find him speaking at virtual conferences and teaching everything he knows about branding, entrepreneurship, and life. And he's got this great, really highly regarded podcast called Brand You. So with that, Mike, it's great.
It is awesome to be here. Hello, everybody. And it's so nice to get to meet. You know what I found, Allison? The good people know good people who know more good people. So I am really honored to be here and hope that I can add some value to everybody today.
Well, I know you will, just by you doing you. So I remember that from the very first time we met. I'm like, wow, this guy shines. I feel like you do your own work. You know, that was just the sense I got.
Yes, yes, and we all do that as coaches to a great degree. We love our clients. I consider myself a coach. A lot of people will hire me for marketing and branding, but as you all know, sometimes the problem they hire you for isn't really the problem. And so, you know, I tend to help people through marketing and branding. I end up coaching them. Sometimes I almost feel like a therapist at times, but yeah. So this will be fun because I love working with coaches. It is who I work with primarily to begin with. So we live in a very, very opportune time, a very unique time in history, and the reason I just do what I do is because I really want the world to know the brilliant people and the good people, the wise minds that are out there. And what I don't like is that a lot of times they get overlooked because they just don't know marketing that well. And so, and they're not willing to do the weird and sometimes shady things that other people do to get word out about who they are. And so I think just by getting to know Allison a little bit, and I think we're all kind of probably cut from the same cloth. Yeah. We want to do good work. We want to do work we love and believe in. We want to let others know about what we can do for them, but we don't want to do it in a way that draws the attention just to us. We want to help them. So
yeah. So I just want to double down on something you said, Mike. Mm-hmm. Every single person, I'm going to get on my high horse a little bit. Every single person on this call has something unique to share. Every single person. I think what happens is we as coaches, we think, oh, we're doing what everybody else does. You know, anyone can coach anyone. We're doing what everybody else does. And having gotten to know coaches the way I have, everyone has something unique and special to share. Everyone. And we discount it just the same way our clients discount their own gifts, we can discount ours. And so I just, as people listen to you today, I'm just want to encourage everyone to hold yourself as your client and know that you have something unique and special to say and that people need to hear it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Mike, what do you say to coaches who have kind of a natural aversion to self-promotion?
Yes. So I'm like this too. Trust me. Okay. So here's what I would say to folks like us. Okay. And this is something I had to learn along the way, that we are paid for what we think. You know, people come to us to help guide them, share some insights, you know, present new insights, ask insightful questions. So really at the end of the day, what we're paid for is inside of our head. And I like to tell people, business is nothing more than solving a problem for a profit. That's really it. And so when we look at the problems that we're asked to help our clients solve and how we solve them through the things that are in our heads. Now, the last time I checked, human beings are really bad at reading minds. So we are thought leaders, but if we never share our thoughts, we have no marketing. Nobody really knows what's in our heads. And so the key to understanding marketing and branding isn't so much a, hey, everybody look at me, I'm awesome, I'm great. It's just simply sharing your thoughts. And if there's one way that I can phrase marketing, you ask me, what is your philosophy on marketing? It's simply this. Marketing isn't about closing a sale. It's about opening a relationship. And that one will preach, because I think when we look at that as service professionals, as coaches, as people who truly care about our clients and about what we do, we also intuitively understand no relationship on earth can thrive without talking and communication. I mean, look at your spouse, look at your kids, look at your friends, and it's the same with your market. It's the same with your clients. It's the same with prospects. If we don't talk to them, it's impossible for us to open a relationship. I mean, I've been on some days where I'm just like, wow, she's not very talkative. This is not going anywhere, right? And it's just a human principle. It's not a marketing principle. It's not a branding and social media principle. It's just a human principle. We've got to talk to people. So if people do not know what's in our head, they're not going to read our minds. We have no marketing. And really, at the end of the day, if everything we talk about today is seen through that lens of marketing isn't about closing a sale, it's about opening a relationship. I think that is really the big first shift that will help us kind of see the value in us adding value to people and sharing what we know.
Yeah, and if I extend what you're saying one more, just adding on what you said, I think my hunch is most of the people in this crowd get that it's not about selling, it's about creating a relationship. The thing that you said that I think might be a little bit more novel is that creating a relationship starts with having the conversation or creating the conversation, which starts with what's in our head. David White, I heard David White, he's a poet, speak not long ago. And one of the things he said is that, actually this was ages ago, and he said, like, the conversation is the relationship.
Yes.
And so how do you help a coach clarify what is theirs to say? What is the conversation they want to be having?
Yeah. So this is kind of a, it's kind of an interesting situation that we're in because these days, and I've helped some of these marketing gurus say this because they've hired me to say this, there's so much focus on make sure that you are not the hero of the story. You're the guide. The customer is the hero. And I think there is some merit to that. There's a lot of merit to that. However, in the coaching space, it's completely different. Because at the end of the day, people are choosing you, not just your methodology, not just your strategies, not just your ability or experiences. They're choosing you, and they're making those decisions based on emotion, not rationale. So if there's one thing I could say about how marketing and sales go hand in hand, I want us to understand this, that people buy based on emotion, and then they rationalize the purchase later. It's always emotion first. And I'm not an emotional guy. I am a logical guy. But in those split seconds where I decide to purchase something or hire somebody, I'm making an emotional decision, and then I'm literally justifying it a minute later through rationale. And so this is going to sound counterintuitive, but when we talk about us as coaches, we are the business. You actually do have to talk about yourself. You have to have something that taps into your emotion that can potentially connect with prospects. I'm going to walk you guys through that today. And while it does make sense that our customers, our clients are the hero of the story, we're simply the guide. In this space, in this industry, we have to talk about ourselves a little bit because that's what people connect with. Now, I can see some of you on the video. How many of you have ever gone on to Wikipedia looked up some celebrity or some politician or some world leader or some athlete, and you scroll down to the tab that says personal life.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
you
yeah.
right there, Justice raising her
For
hand, right?
sure, yeah.
Betsy's raising her hand. We do, this is a human thing. You done it, and so your clients are going to do it to you. Well, I heard of this Allison lady.
Although I'm not going to be on Wikipedia.
Right. But the principle,
I wish I were.
it's human. We can make that happen. But it's human nature is what I'm saying here. We've all done this because we're human, and therefore our clients and prospects are going to do the same thing to us. They are looking for a connection point. When we meet at a networking party, a dinner party, whatever, small talk is a search for a connection point. Where are you from? DC. Oh, where are you from? Maryland. Oh, wow, we're practically neighbors. There, it builds rapport over and over again. So there has to be an ability for us to share a little bit of ourselves so that we can create connection points with our prospects.
So Mike, I'd love to just take a second and double down on what you said. We have a Podinar guest in not August, September, and we're coming up with what's the title going to be and how do we present it. And so I went on his website, and in the about section where, oh my gosh, I mean, I know him and I've met him. I just fell in love with this guy. I fell in love with this guy because he talked about his parents and where he grew up and his ancestral history. And he talked about his identity, how he identifies as a human and a person. And like, it was very vulnerable. And I felt like this is a human.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to double down on what you're saying of like, I think when we think about putting something on a website or putting it out in the world, we think it needs to be clean and buzzy and like look a certain way and it has a certain polish around it. And that's not, I don't think that's who I fall in love with anyway.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. We're looking for those connection points. And the online space, everyone, social media, websites, advertising, it is just a attempt to recreate the phenomenon of what happens when we meet face to face. That's simply it. What Allison just described was her meeting this guy at a dinner party. She just happened to do it through a website. And so there's an art and a craft to communicating through that medium of websites, of social media, of copywriting, writing your ads and writing your content. That is where I can come in and help to make sure the true you is being conveyed there. But we all know it's different talking to someone face to face, on a video call, on the phone. It's all different. The medium changes the way we relate. So we're going to dig into that a little bit. Yeah.
Do you want to have me share that screen? We were going to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if our guests on the call want to take a screenshot of this question, although we'll give you resources, like there's a money shot here. If you want to take a screenshot of this, you can. So Mike, if you will walk us through this.
Yeah. So this, of course, all this begs the question, well, Mike, how do we talk about ourselves? How do we convey ourselves? How do we market ourselves in a way that, really conveys who we are? And what I've created is just a simple matrix called the PB3 for short. I just call it the personal brand 3. All of us are a personal brand business, right? We're coaches. People are working with us directly. Most of us are probably not selling physical products of any kind. We're selling ourselves. We're selling our expertise or services. And so when someone asks me, well, Mike, how do I convey this? I just ask them these 3 questions. And so I'm going to take you guys through this really quickly. The first question is intentionally emotional. I'm using sort of bad language on purpose because I want to get to what's inside of you. So what pisses you off? And if you're taking notes, what I mean by that, and this is another emotion word, is the injustice that you see in the world. I want you to use that word. Not in your marketing, but right now as we kind of dig through your backstory. what pisses you off? What is the injustice you see in the world? The second question is, what breaks your heart? And that is the compassion you have for people, which is probably why all of you have gone into coaching. You carry a sense of injustice and compassion. There's a blend there, right? It's a burden you carry in your heart. And number three, what problem are you trying to solve? I said a few minutes ago, business is nothing more than solving a problem for a profit. That's business. Charity is we solve a problem for no profit, right? But in our businesses, what is the big problem you're trying to solve? And that is the purpose of your business. Now, let me share a little bit of how to frame this, and we can kind of dialogue a little bit about that. But let me contextualize this, because this was a really big breakthrough for me. I ask my clients this all the time. This is actually the foundation of everything that I do in marketing and branding. And several years ago, Allison, I hit kind of a ceiling with my business, not a financial ceiling. I was just getting bored. I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing anymore. For the first few years of my business, I was just trying to start a business. I was trying to get revenue to a certain place. I was trying to hire the right people, get clarity on what I was offering. And once I got there and I got out of my old day job where I was, I was in marketing in corporate, I realized that my journey up to that point was completely driven by leaving a present negative and moving to a future positive. Once I got to the future positive, I was like, what's next? It was like I was saved from something, but not to something. Mm-hmm. So I was in that in-between period where I was like, well, what's next? I solved most of the problems, but now what do I do? And my assistant said, why don't we just use the BB3 on you? I've seen you do it a million times. I'm going to walk you through it. So we do this, and she just keeps asking me question after question, just digging deeper like a good coach does. And what I realized was that there were these stories connected to these questions. So what pisses me off is that I remember this one day, Thanksgiving 2013, my mother and sister came over to my house in New Jersey. I was living at the time. First time I ever hosted Thanksgiving. Stayed up till 2 in.the morning, talking, having a few glasses of wine. It was amazing. Never had a time like that with my mother before, when we're drinking together. And I checked my email before I go to bed, and my company was like, we need you to come into work tomorrow on Black Friday. I was like, oh my, what? It ticked me off. It really pissed me off. We weren't a retail company. There's no reason I needed to be there. And I was already working 60, 70 hours a week for them. And I found it to be a grave injustice that someone was calling me last second to come in for some meetings. And I thought all these things, God forbid I get in a car accident, or this is the last time that my mom and sister and I ever get to do this. It's taken me off that someone's telling me what days I can work, what days I'm allowed to spend with my family, especially after I've been putting in a lot of work for them. That really pissed me off. What breaks my heart is that I worked with a lot of people while I was growing my side hustle who were brilliant. They went to the best universities in the world. And I would talk to them a little bit about my side hustle, and they were like caged animals. They were like living a caged life. They weren't just content, they were caged, let alone charged. They were not living a charged life, even a content life. They were living a caged life. And back then I was watching this TV show called The Walking Dead about zombies. I'm just like, man, we got zombies everywhere. I'm one of them. I'm trying to get out. I'm trying to wake up, and that broke my heart, because I felt like a lot of these folks didn't like their job and they didn't enjoy what they were doing, but they were brilliant. And the world was going to miss out on their brilliance because they were living this caged life. So the problem I'm trying to solve is to help that small sliver of this population who wants to step out, become a coach, a speaker, a consultant, a person who wants to create impact with their ideas, get their message heard, a person who wants to do work that they love and actually believe in. And I'm going to help them do that by solving the marketing problem. That is when, snap of a finger, I no longer saw myself as a marketing guy. I saw myself as almost a life coach, if you will, or career coach who happens to do it through marketing. Now, here's the funny thing. When I share that story from stage, from my podcast, that Thanksgiving story is what most people resonate with. They get to know me. They don't ask, well, how do you market? That's like a second, third level question. But the emotional connection is made. So as we kind of go through these questions, everyone, I leave them purposely open-ended. Some may ask, well, are we talking about what pisses me off professionally at work? No, I just want you to rant. I want you to verbally just toss it up on this on your notebook paper or on the screen, because, and I'll finish with this in a second. Notice what I didn't say. I didn't say, you know what really pisses me off? Really bad advertising and ugly websites. You know what really breaks my heart? People have no idea what they're doing with their marketing. Now, there are people who would answer that way. Guess where they are? They work at Ogilvy or some other global marketing company, VaynerMedia. They design all the ads that we see on TV. These are artists. I'm a coach who happens to market, and I'm good at it. Those people are marketers who market.
Yeah.
And what happened was, going through this connected me deeper to my core, and that's what people resonate with. And all of us as coaches, we need to find what that is. We need to find what's in the core, because that's what people are going to believe. It's going to be what they resonate with. It's going to be that frequency that they tune into, that you're communicating. So
I
the
love
PV3.
that, Mike. You know, we have to get to and reveal our core for our clients to believe we can get to theirs.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely right. It's absolutely right.
Yeah.
So then everything from there becomes, how do we strategically deploy this? How do we write stories? How do we create content? How do we write it on a web page in a way that makes sense and connects with people? How do we do that? That's really where all the marketing and branding comes into play. When someone asks me, how do we start a brand? I start there. It's your personal story. It's what Christina's why is. It is what Jeannie's why is. It's what Justice's why is, right? It's that personal story that makes you unique, because nobody else has that story.
Cool.
Then you build the platform, and then you position your brand, and then you have the products and services and the prices. And I'll draw that all out for you guys so you can have a roadmap. But I want us to really understand that this is the foundational piece in the industry that we've chosen to make our living in.
Yeah. So let's just take a quick pause here and ask Sarah if, Sarah, do we have any questions in the chat box right now?
Yeah, we have a couple of good ones. Justice wants to know, besides being inappropriate, however we each define that, can we be too open?
Yes, you can. It's completely up to you. I think my audience feels that I'm very open. Let me define this, because I get this question quite often. You guys don't need to use this per se, but this has been helpful for me. There is a distinction between authenticity and transparency. Transparency is reserved for the very few people in my life who really know me. These are my 3 a.m. friends. Like when I'm in a crisis, 3 a.m., right? Authenticity is being real about how I feel, or for some people, just admitting they have feelings. Little story. 4 years ago, 2016, business was booming. My marriage took a hard left turn. My wife, 10 years, was like, I don't want to be married anymore to you. I think we should see other people. Everything looked great on the outside. Lived near New York, had this big house, blah, 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 blah. Life takes a hard left turn, right, for me. End of the story, just good news. We're still friends. We're kind, and we are sad about what happened, but it's 4 years now, and we've treasured the time we had together. But hell on earth, awful time. Signed a book deal, couldn't write the book, had no energy, right, to do anything. And I was like, what do I do? My business is me. What do I do? Now, I decided to be I decided to be authentic about what happened. I wasn't transparent. The people did not know what my wife said, what she did, what we were going through. People knew I was going through something, and they could tell. They're like, I noticed she deleted you on all your social media. I noticed that all your photos are gone. You know, people are not dumb, and I'm not going to insult their intelligence by pretending like everything's okay, but neither am I going to be overtly transparent. Those conversations were for my friends, my family, my counselor, all that stuff, right? Now, years after the fact, you know, the marriage dissolved, and it's been 2 years now. So this has been a 4-year journey. I can talk very authentically about what happened because I gave it the time that it deserved. I don't talk about it a lot, but people know. I wrote a blog post about it. I did a podcast episode after I was on the other side. And after I felt I did a significant amount of healing. And after I kind of just rebuilt myself and my business, and I shared with people what I learned. And that was a connection point. And you guys may think, well, Mike, did you strategize that marketing wise? No, this was not some grandiose marketing master plan, you know, or something. It was just me being authentic, me being real about how I felt, and me being real about what I was going through. Now, this does not mean that everyone needs to know every single detail of your life, but I think most of us can veer a little bit more towards being more open, because most of us have been trained. We are trained coaches here. Most of us have been trained to lean the other way. Do not share anything. Do not open up about, make your client really the centerpiece. But that's great if we were in a different industry. But because we are thought leaders and we are personal brands, people need that connection point. And it's just Wikipedia, personal life stalking. That's all that's happening right here. So just give them enough and then let them know about you. And there's some really practical ways that you can do that. You'd be surprised at the kind of engagement that a post like that can get, right? So.
Great, thank you, Mike. You said there's another question, Sarah.
Yes, Ed wants to know if we should stay away from politics when promoting our brand, for example, on our personal Facebook profiles, not our business pages.
Okay, that is also a classic consultant's answer. It's up to you. If you work with people if you primarily work with people who are of a certain political leaning, that actually may help your brand even more, right? And you double down on that, and that's okay. I have friends on both sides of the political spectrum. I consider myself a moderate. It's probably what made me a good consultant. I can see both sides, right? But I can also see the value of leaning one way or the other. I have friends who are staunchly conservative, friends who are staunchly liberal. I just kind of leave myself out of it. But I've seen people be very successful on both sides. So it's completely up to you. I would look at your client base and see where, you know, your clients are coming from. And if that's where you've chosen to kind of double down, then go ahead, double down. You know, it's really up to you. Yeah. If you're not sure, and if it doesn't have merit, then I would say, yeah, just keep quiet about it then. If it doesn't serve you and it doesn't serve your potential clients, then just turn off the valve. And that's what I would say there. Yeah.
And if anyone wants to raise their hand, we'll take your virtual hand. We'll take questions now too. Mm-hmm. So while we're seeing if anyone has questions live here, one of the questions that we frequently get, Mike, is around, should coaches have a niche? And if they have a niche, if so, how do they decide what the niche is?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the word niche, I love the word niche, and I love that you pronounce the word niche instead of niche. I was a New York guy, New Jersey guy, so we all say niche up there, right? We don't have the softer pronunciation like niche. But there's a very popular saying called the riches are in the niches. Okay. But what happens is when we discuss and use the word niche, it feels constricting. So rather, let me use the word focus. Okay, let me use the word focus. And this may actually help, Allison, if I'm cool to share my screen on my iPad, I'll draw this a little bit.
Please do. Let me know if you have any.
So let me see here. So you guys will see my iPad kind of share the screen, and Zoom I know tends to hog up your whole screen once you do that. You can hit the escape key if you want. But let me talk about niches. All right, so you guys should see my pad here.
Yep.
All right, cool. So when we talk about a niche, again, it can feel restricting. So what I'd rather talk about is a focus. And there are two kinds of focus primarily. We can have a vertical focus, and we can have a horizontal focus. And I'll explain these with a few examples. A vertical focus is where you focus on one particular industry. We have heard that in the business space. Our verticals are this, this, and this, right? So an example of this is I found online a few years ago a marketing agency that only focused on nonprofits. That's all they did. So nonprofits, NPOs, were their vertical market. They did everything for the NPO. They did websites, they did Facebook ad campaigns, they did social media, they did blogging, podcasting, but that was their vertical focus, the NPO. I saw another agency, all they did was market, get this, casinos.
So Mike, what would be a coach's version of a vertical focus?
Yeah, so with a coach could focus just on executive leaders. A coach could focus just on wellness or health, right? And so what I tell folks is that when we look at the coaching space, most of us are going to fall under three general broad areas, and then we determine what the focus is, right? So we're either going to focus on health, wealth, or relationships.
Now, those are three things. What are those three things? I lost the context, Mike.
Health, wealth, and relationships.
And that relates to what, though?
Our coaching, right? So let me explain this, for example, right? Because you're asking about a focus, right? So then the focus will come under one of these, whether we do a vertical or horizontal.
Okay.
So some of you are in the health and wellness space. I see a lot of folks who are coaching in this space, right? They are the inspirational coach, right? They're the spiritual coach, right? They may not be ICF certified, but they call themselves coaches, and they're in the health space, right? Then we see business coaches or executive coaches, and their primary driver is to help their client earn wealth. And then we see other coaches who are family coaches or relationship coaches or dating coaches, and they fall under relationships. These are the three primary drivers by which prospects are finding us. And I did not come up with this, so don't quote me on this one. It's a little bit more crude, but I laughed when I heard it, right? My Northeast sense of humor. Someone put it this way: people either want to get paid, get laid, or live forever. And I just said, okay, right? Now, where it comes with us as coaches is if you're in the health industry, you've got to that's still a very broad market. And you've got to figure out whether you have a vertical focus or a horizontal focus. Same with the wealth, same with relationships. So allow me to go back to this for a second. So if you're in the vertical focus and you're in the wealth market, right? You might say that I focus only on executive leaders as a coach. That's my only focus. That is my vertical. That's what I do for them. Or you might say that I focus on entrepreneurs and I'm a business coach. I'm not going to be able to spell here.
That's okay.
Entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
So I have a clear vertical focus, right? Then there are other folks who have a horizontal focus. And what they do is they do one thing or one service for all verticals. Let me explain. I've met coaches who say, I'm a DISC certified coach. DISC certified. I have a method, I have a service. I do DISC, right? The DISC personality profile toolkit. And I do this for anyone. I do it for anyone. So they have a horizontal focus. They do one thing, but they horizontally can go across every vertical. Many coaches are mixed up on all of this. They kind of do 3 things for 5 different niches or 5 different types of focus.
That's true.
And so when you can say as a coach, I do one thing for one vertical, now you have focus. It's almost like the crosshairs on a gun, on a scope. You have focus. So for me, I am in the wealth industry. I'm in the wealth industry because at the end of the day, clients hire me to help them market a business. Okay. And what I've done is I have focused solely in the vertical of personal branding and niche down even further. I work primarily with coaches and speakers. And it's this clarity that made Allison go, hey, you might be good to talk to our people today. Because I had a focus. If you look at my client list, John Maxwell, Donald Miller, Suzanne Evans, these are all personal brands who are coaches and speakers. And the more I narrowed down my focus, actually, the more and more my business grew. Now, let me just describe one thing here, because not a lot of people see this, and it's probably a little bit easier for us to articulate here. And we can talk about some marketing things, Allison, if you'd like. I call this stage of narrowing the focus the valley of focus. Okay, I've completely made this up. And so there is this magical place over on the horizon that people see, you know, and it's got, you know, sunshine and rainbows and all this stuff. And it's called the land of whatever I want. And this is what every coach and personal brand and speaker endeavors to live in, right? It's a sunny, wonderful place called the land of whatever I want. And they say, look at Tony Robbins, look at Ellen DeGeneres, look at The Rock. They can do whatever they want, talk about whatever they want. Everything they do touches, turns to gold, and we want it. And we're over here, right? We're over here, our little self, and we're like, yay, we want to go to the land of whatever I want. And there's this road that we want to take to go there, but we don't realize that this road goes down into this really lonely place that I call the valley of focus. Okay. And what happens as you're in this valley of focus, you know, is that we start to go down this road and we focus on one vertical or one horizontal, and we focus in whether we're in health, wealth, or relationships, we really focus there. And it feels lonely because, you know, nobody is following us, you know, maybe a few people and, you know, our family, right? Or something like that. And then the more we focus, you know, we feel alone because no one's paying our attention to our stuff. But counterintuitively, what happens is the more we narrow our focus onto one thing, we attract a small crowd of people ourselves. But what happens is we start to attract, because of clarity, someone who's an influencer. They're a bigger person. And that influencer has with him or with her their own tribe of people. And because you have clarity, this influencer now looks at you. And because that influencer has looked at you, their other friends who are influencers and have their own tribe of people look at you. And another influencer over here looks at you because he's seen or she has seen that you have worked with these other influential people. And these folks are asking you, because you have clarity, because you have focus, can you come speak to my group about your area of expertise? Guys, what is happening right now on this call is literally what I'm describing to you. Allison is one of these folks right here. Because I had clarity, because she knew I worked with John Maxwell or Donald Miller, and we met at, I'm just writing Donald Miller, and we met at Cadre in DC, and Derek Coburn vouched for me. She said, oh, these other people who have tribes have trusted this guy. I don't know Mike that well, but he does have clarity. Let me invite my whole LIA community to learn from him. And what happens is that I have gained over time from simply being in the valley of focus, a tribe. And the longer and longer I serve these tribes, the more and more they stick with me, not just because of what I know, and this is really important, not just because of what I know, but because of who I am. That's why people stick with you. And out of, you know, let's say, let's just do the math really easily. Let's just say that this is 10,000 people that I'm describing here, circled in yellow. And over time, I have built a relationship with them. And I pivot my business to go to the land of whatever I want, and I decide one day, you know what? I want to talk about fitness and health. I want to completely change my market from wealth to health. Maybe 10% of these people will come with me to the land of whatever I want, just because they love me. They want to be around me. They'll follow whatever I do. Now, if I continue to grow the tribe to 100,000, right, or 1 million, this 10% just continues to go up. That is how every thought leader, every celebrity, every person that we endeavor to be like has gotten to the land of whatever I want. Tony Robbins actually just talked about one thing for decades. Ellen DeGeneres did stand-up comedy for decades. The Rock was a professional wrestler for decades. When he went into the movie industry, his fans left him. 90% of his fans left him. This valley of focus is the rite of passage, but this is also what brings us all the influence. And I don't have to belabor the point here, but this is where all of these clients found me, and it's what actually elevated my stature. And here's the funny thing now. I want to write a book. I know my past clients, they're not going to read my book. They're not going to. I'm just their colleague now. I'm their friend. But now I've got Allison, who may write an endorsement for my book. I've got Derek Coburn, who can write an endorsement for my book. John Maxwell, Donald Miller. I've got friends now at this stage in my journey. I never would have had those relationships. And it's all through the valley of focus. And one question I get a lot is, how long is the valley of focus? Well, success leaves clues. It could be years. It could be, for me, it's been years. 8 years, only talking about personal branding. 8 years. The Rock, 20 years of being a professional wrestler.
I
right?
can imagine it can, you mentioned this before, I just want to double on it. It can feel lonely. And I imagine you can wonder, is any of this doing any good? Or maybe I'm just saying that because I feel that way sometimes.
Yes, but that's where community comes into play. That's why you guys should stay in this community.
Yeah.
These are your friends. When you go through that valley of focus, people leave you, but also new friends find you.
Yeah.
And your life gets enriched. So, you know, Mike, how do we kind of unpack this? And I know, Allison, you and I, when we were preparing for the call, you wanted me to share this one framework.
For sure.
So Mike, how do we walk the valley of focus? How do we go through that? How do we let people know what we're doing? And for all intents and purposes, for lack of a better term, I'm going to create another graph here. So let's just say these are followers that you have, and this is your authority or expertise. Okay. And I'm just going to draw a little graph here, right? So folks who have very few followers and very little authority, these are going to be more your industry insiders. They happen to work in your markets, right, in coaching, but they're not necessarily coaches, right? I have folks who work for me, they're contractors. I have a web designer. I have a VA. I have an executive assistant. She does not have a lot of followers or not a lot of authority as a personal brand expert like I do. She just works with me. She's an industry insider. That's no knock on her. I'm just saying we're placing this, right? Now, if you have a lot of authority but not a lot of followers, you are an expert. And most of us will find ourselves here because we don't do a lot of marketing. We don't have these huge social media followings or large email lists or anything like that. But we're really good at what we do. We're highly trained experts at what we do. So most of us are going to find ourselves there. if you have a lot of followers but very little authority, okay, this is half joking, okay, so just go with me here. But this is what we call these days an influencer, right? And I hate that term, but we're an influencer. These are the people who have huge social media accounts, and then we silently judge them, and we're like, they're so vapid, they're so empty, right? They just have Instagram accounts where they post pictures of themselves like traveling or working out. Are they really coaches? No. You know, do they really know anything? No. Right? So they have a lot of, these are like the Kim Kardashians of the world. Like, what is she good at? We don't know, but she has so many followers.
Influencing.
Influence, she's good at influencing, right? And there is a market for that. And then finally up in here, where you have a lot of authority and you have a lot of followers, this is where you're a thought leader, right? This is where you're a thought leader. And I want to point this out here, that when we look at these three people, experts, influence, and thought leaders, they all market very differently. They get word out about what they do very differently. The experts, most of us are going to identify with this. We do a lot of word of mouth marketing. Many of our leads, our prospects, our future clients come through word of mouth. If that's you, just type yes into the chat box. And I'm willing to bet that most of us are going to say yes, right? A client will refer us. Yeah, look at all the yeses, right? Lena, right? Terry, they're coming in like crazy, right? Nearly all referrals. Okay. Now, this is good, but it's not something that we should rest our laurels on. Most of us want to get to a thought leader status, right? We want people to come to us because we know their expertise. I heard this guy, Mike Kim, say we're thought leaders and we need to share our thoughts. And so, yes, I just want to share my thoughts and have people bombard me with requests for coaching. We all want that's the dream scenario. I'm going to publish books and create courses. We all want to do this. But in reality, the way the thought leader markets him or herself is through a framework. And oftentimes the framework is just as popular or more popular than the creator.
Yeah.
So let's just look at a couple of examples. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if you can give an example that a coach would give, because I think, so what I would encourage is that, or expect that, like, every person on the Podinar today may not consider themselves an expert and is. And if we don't consider ourselves an expert, it's because we just haven't looked, I think, deeply enough at what we're doing uniquely that others aren't. So yeah, everyone here today is an expert. So I just, we may not be clear in what our expertise is, and that might be our first task. And so, and then if you could give an example of a coach framework and a thought leader's
Sure. So how many of you guys have heard of Michael Bungay Stanier? He wrote a book called The Coaching Habit.
Oh yeah,
Okay?
that's right.
Coaching Habit, right? And a lot of yeses about Michael Bungay Stanier, right? Perfect example of a coach who does this, right? So the coaching habit. So you didn't know his name, but you knew his framework.
Yeah.
And it's just 7 questions. It's a 7-question framework, right? Coaching habit. Okay. And we have all these other folks out there. Let me try to think of a few more, but we get the point, right? We get the point, right? And there are other personal brands out there.
David Drake is a framework,
Drake, right?
Coaching.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So these folks are known, Susan, David, right? So this is great, right? And so we know this, and then outside in the world, we know this. Dave Ramsey is known for his financial frameworks, right? We know this. So these folks have frameworks, and that's how they market everything. They productize their intellectual property into a framework that sells over and over and over again. And for them, the framework frames the work they do. That's very important. Just jot that down, because as Allison coaches you through developing your expertise and honing that in, just realize that as you're trying to build this out, the framework is what's going to frame the work, right? Someone said Marshall Goldsmith. I've heard of Marshall.
That's he's supposedly the most, I don't know, famous coach on the planet.
Right.
He has an absolute rich framework for sure.
Right. So what happens is we look at this and we see ourselves maybe down here. We're experts who are marketing through word of mouth, and we all want to move to thought leader status. That sounds great, Mike. Yes, I do have a methodology. I feel like I have a particular way of doing things. Can you help me codify this into a framework? How can I jump to framework and thought leadership steps? What most of us don't understand is that we have to understand what the influencer does really well. Okay? And what the influencer, like them or not, what they do really well, these people, they publish content like crazy. They do not miss a post. If this gal does not post on her Instagram 3 times a day, she's not getting money. You know,
and overall, what's the quality of that content?
Let me get into that for a second, right?
Okay.
I just want us to understand what the marketing methodology is, how they're getting word out. So if I'm an Instagram quote unquote influencer and I'm a workout and fitness fanatic, companies are sending me clothes to wear and take a picture of myself on my Instagram account to get word out. So therefore I must publish. I must post a photo. People who are on YouTube, they publish they never miss a date. They publish content like crazy. If they don't get paid. They don't get the sponsorships. They don't get the ads.
Is there
Now,
an example of an influencer that you know?
I'm going to say something. No, there is not. And here's why. They're not coaches. But I'm going to say something that's going to sound a little controversial. Tony Robbins is not a thought leader. He's an influencer. Does he have a framework? All Tony Robbins has done is curate other people's frameworks. I know because I've gone to his events. He's an influencer. He's not a Kim Kardashian Instagram influencer that doesn't know anything and has no authority. He might be a little bit closer to here where he has authority, but does he work with people the way that you guys do? He publishes content and he's a speaker. So we look at Tony Robbins. He doesn't do stuff one-on-one. A lot of these other folks that we follow online or read their books, we named one guy, Malcolm Gladwell. That's the name I'm looking for.
No.
Is he a thought leader? Most people say, yes, he's a thought leader. No, he's not. He's an author. He curates other people's ideas and puts them in a book. He's an influencer. So I don't mean influence in a bad way, but what do these people do? They publish content like crazy. Simon Sinek, someone just asked. He's right in this crowd. Does he have a framework? No, it's start with why. It's open-ended. The end game, right? Or the long game or whatever the last book is, right?
Mm-hmm.
These guys are, what do they have? Why do we even know their names? They publish like crazy. We know these names because they publish, but thought leaders, they publish, but they have a framework.
So we're going to need to wrap, Mike. Sorry about that. This is such great content.
So I'm going to end it with this. What I'm saying here is for us to really market our coaching services like nobody else can, to move from expert to a thought leader requires us, we go this way, that way. And that's what I stumbled onto. I was working a demanding job. And so I had to look at my time and say, I'm just going to start a podcast. I'm going to start blogging. And as I did that, I was inadvertently walking through the valley of focus, which got me where I am, right? So I know that we're at time here, so I'm going to stop the screen share here, and I want to be able to see everybody again. But I hope that that was helpful because I want us to truly understand this space and what's required of us to take things to the next level.
That was awesome, Mike. And I'll just this out a question that I'll field real quick, and then we'll finish up. Is like she said, well, where do you start in like a podcast, or like start with whatever lights you up. If you like to write. If you like to talk, do a podcast. If you like to do video, I find for me that's the easiest thing to do is to show up on a video and talk. Do whatever you can do fastest and most prolifically, and whatever's easiest for you. And particularly if you do something like a podcast or video, then you can send all that content to someone else to write it up. You know, and it's copywriters can be, not Mike, but there are stock copywriters that can do that at a reasonable price. So I would say figure out what you're an expert at, come up with your framework for your niche, and then get the word out as easily as is possible for you, and on whatever platforms you like the best, where your clients are, your prospects are. So yes, there will be a recording. Everyone will get a recording. And so there's been a request for a part 2. So Mike, that's something we should talk about. This was super great content. So thank you. So